Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. With me, I have someone who's taught over 10,000 singles and couples how to have exceptional romantic relationships over the last 25 years. They bring their Zen Buddhism and Western psychology background to help thousands of busy entrepreneurs, well, their business as well, build healthy love lives. Alicia Davon, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you here as well. And quite interesting work you do. I mean, I had some people talk about relationships because I like to talk about a variety of kind of like development areas in business and life. And of course, relationship is a very important area as well. So it's nice to have someone talking about relationships. But it's quite interesting with the work you're doing and the combination of Zen Buddhism and Western psychology. So we're going to look into that. But first, just tell us how you got into this work and what is it?
Yes, sure. So my husband, Erwan, and I, we run an organization. We support both singles and couples in creating amazing romantic relationship lives. So that's what we do. It's all we've ever done. Erwan founded our organization in 1995, before we had met, and had been working in the organization for about 10 years before I met him. And I was studying psychology. So, I had a really great upbringing, and I found myself really interested in people and what drives us to do what we do, and the behind the scenes of our actions and our lives, and ended up studying psychology and training to be a therapist. And then when I was in my master's program, about to finish, is when I met Erwan, and he, like I said, was already doing his work with both singles and couples around relationships and awareness and sexuality and that type of thing. And when I discovered what he was doing, I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I jumped on board with his organization, and that was almost 20 years ago. And now, we're married, we have a family, we run our organization together. We're based in San Francisco, in California, but we teach online, so we support people all over the world.
Yeah, well, that's a good synopsis of what you do. So, it's quite interesting with some of the work you do with the Western psychology combined with the Zen Buddhism. So can you tell me how that works, and how your daily practices helps infuse energy into the clients?
Sure. So, people come to work with us for a variety of reasons. We work with both singles and couples. So singles come to us usually to learn how to get into a successful romantic relationship, like how to date successfully and deal with online dating. And of course, during this whole pandemic that's been happening the last couple of years, there's like a special case, how do you actually meet somebody and connect under those circumstances and just deal with all the stuff that comes up. So that's why singles come to us. And then couples usually come to us for some version of wanting to juice up their relationship. Maybe it was really kind of fun and passionate in the beginning, but that's kind of died down, or they've been married for years or decades and the romance just isn't at the forefront anymore, and they want to gain skills, to get back to that really fun part of their relationship, which is why most of us get into a relationship, initially is because we got the hots for someone, right? So, so we have a method, getting to your question. Our method, it's called the Davon method, and we use it to support both singles and couples and all of their romantic goals. And the first part of the method, there's 5 parts, is consciousness. People are like, consciousness? Like, I came here to learn how to juice up my relationships. How does consciousness play a part? Well, it plays a huge part. Consciousness of your unconscious hidden relationship patterns, which we all have as human beings, right? Like, we find ourselves our relationships end in the same way every time, or we have the same troubles. We end up feeling, like the other person's not good enough, or we're not good enough, or we can't find anybody that we're attracted to, or we have trouble communicating, or we just have these issues as human beings in relationship. And they're usually coming from a patterned place, like from our past. We were kind of taught by our parents and experiences we had in our upbringing to view the world a certain way, view ourselves a certain way, view people a certain way, and that limits our experience in relationships. So the first part of our method is bring the light to that, shine the light on that, bring some awareness to that, so we're not being driven by our unconscious in romantic relationship and then hence getting the same results. So that's the first part. And then the second part goes even deeper: making contact with your true self.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's our personalities and our patterns, and then there's ourselves, that which cannot ever be touched or tainted or anything, that pure being.
For some people that can involve a lot of work, or even some people it might be, they might have had a lot of stuff that's happened that's very sensitive, and maybe, I don't know if that's, they don't want to go there kind of thing, they don't want to be reminded of a very traumatic stuff or whatever, and shape the person they are with whatever. I mean, how do you go about approaching that true self with them?
Yeah, it's really common. I mean, many people have experienced very difficult things in their upbringing, traumas, and just less than ideal situations. And it can be, sometimes what we do with that, there's a wound, some kind of wound or some kind of trauma, and it's really, really painful. And then we kind of create our own scar tissue around it. We cover it up and we numb ourselves out, and we build personality characteristics on top of it as to not go back and feel that pain. So going back there to experience some of that can be tough. And our approach is it's very gentle, it's very gradual. We support people in feeling their bodies and meditation and inquiry and just looking, wow, what feelings are coming up right now? What do you feel? How is that? It's not trying to get anywhere, but it's required being gentle around these sensitive topics. And it's really, it's kind of necessary to go into some of these tricky areas. And if we're able to be courageous in it with the right type of support, there's really some gifts in there. There's some sensitivity, there's lessons.
Yeah, wow. So I know you mentioned about the COVID period. Obviously, we're still not out of the pandemic totally yet, but obviously there is now, borders opening, we're free to go out and about. But of course, it has affected relationships. Tell me about how you've had to approach your work with clients, and how do you see it going, with what we have to deal with?
Yeah, so obviously the pandemic has thrown a wrench in people's romantic lives, but it's also created a lot of opportunities. So for example, singles, it's like, oh my gosh, now on top of having to go and like online date or whatever, I have to think about when is it safe to go meet this person live, and how do I manage that? So we've walked our single students through kind of like how to succeed on the apps. We've suggested doing things like online speed dating and things like that, like not stopping, not using the pandemic as an excuse to just not, because dating, let's face it, it can be sort of uncomfortable and frustrating sometimes. But if you don't stop and you continue to engage and then adjust, improve, it can go well. So, how to get from the app to a Zoom call, and how to have that Zoom call be really fun and really light, and get a sense of if you want to meet up with the person. And then if you really want to, do it safely, do it before, outside and masked, and just get to know the person. So it's kind of like a more gradual process, but still moving it forward, and then eventually if you really want to get with the person, you deal with that. You make sure it's safe in whatever you deem safe, and then you just proceed.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Speed dating online. How did that work?
I had
I did try it. I
yeah.
was going to say I did try speed dating, but not online.
Well, yeah, there's some great speed dating groups that we know of, and they're actually around the world.
Okay.
And yeah, and a lot of them went online. I had mixed reviews from my students about how it was. It's just different. But at least, see, the benefit of doing anything like that, whether it's like you try online speed dating or you get on an app and you connect with someone and you have a Zoom call, is like it's all practice. It's all an opportunity just to put yourself out there. And if we have the expectations, kind of like low expectations, high possibility, so you're not like, okay, I'm going to meet my one and only, and then you don't, and you're like, this sucks. And, just kind of setting your expectations. Like, I'm going to keep myself warm and limber. It's like, if you take exercise as another example, some people, the pandemic, we have to stay home. I can't go to the gym. Therefore, I can't exercise. Well, you can. You just want to keep yourself limber and go take a walk or something,
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's quite interesting. There was this big thing when the pandemic first started that some relationships could actually be broken up and stuff like that. But then later on down the line, that they actually said, well, actually, it helped enhance it because it was around to get more together. But it varied. How did you find that side of it yourself?
Oh, well, for couples and for us, it can either be a big pain in the butt or it can be a really great opportunity, because suddenly couples are finding themselves both working from home, like in their apartments, and usually they're used to having tons of space, or maybe their independent social activities were decreased and they were just together all the time. And Erwan and I have designed a set of practices that we recommend to all of our students. I mean, some of these practices we didn't make up ourselves, like meditation, for example, but we've put forth the 4 practices that we recommend for both singles and couples to really be in their bodies and connect with themselves and also connect with each other. And the 4 practices are meditation, psychological inquiry, which is a fancy way of saying just kind of, if you're with your partner, taking turns sharing like what you're feeling and what you're experiencing, what you notice. And then the third one is body practice. So anything that gets you into your body. It could be exercise. It's not necessarily like running on a treadmill while staring at your screen exercise, but more, it could be yoga or a walk, or it could even be that you're on a rowing machine or something, but you're really present in your body. And then the 4th practice is sensual practice. So we've designed these touching practices that couples can engage in. So it's kind of like, here we are at home all the time, Netflix, sure, but maybe we can deliberately engage in some of these touching practices, which range from non-sexual touching, just kind of nice nurturing touch back and forth. And it could, get sexual, and there's skills and technique there that we teach on the other end of the spectrum. But, just being deliberate about what you're doing together is what we've supported couples in.
Oh, well, you mentioned meditation. How does presence and meditation support a relationship?
Presence supports everything, really, because that connection with ourselves, with reality, with what's going on. I mean, especially these days where there's so many distractions with technology and this and that and all the things that we're trying to get done, having a practice of coming into yourself and feeling and being present. Like the other night I do like 10, 15 minutes of meditation every day, nothing crazy. And I just remember sitting there and like, when I sat down to meditate, I was thinking about, okay, our son and the stuff I have to get done and this and that and work and blah, blah. And then I meditated and just breathed, sat quietly for 10 to 15 minutes. And then I was like, oh, I felt so alive. I was more present to Erwan and our love and just felt this peaceful feeling. That took 10, 15 minutes of sitting and doing nothing. It brings you back to yourself, and then you're more available to connect with your partner.
Yeah, that's because it does bring a sense of awareness, and I used it for sports and obviously for calming down for stress. Well, no, just a strategy to use to sort of regroup and stay resilient and calm. Yeah, so it's just in all kinds of situations. But I never thought about that with relationships. But I suppose if you're using it already, then the relationship's gonna, the time when you have heated arguments or something's not going right, it's like, oh, you're doing something around the house, and like, you do it this way, you do it, whatever's going on. I find myself, kind of trying to, really cool the situation down, really, I suppose. But yeah, it does work.
Well, Erwan and I have a practice. We're not always perfect at it, but when let's say something gets heated between us, we're having a disagreement, and we're both very fiery people, so things can get kind of intense quickly.
Yeah.
One of us can say, okay, let's take a break, and we just take a break, literally go to different parts of the house and calm down. Even if you take a break, like for 5 minutes, you just drive a wedge between like the reactivity and being with the person and having to make your point and just sit. Meditation doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, there's lots of different ways, but it really is just not doing. It's just sitting,
just being with yourself, really.
Yeah, it helps. It helps so much.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you still might have that mind chatter and things, but you're away from the situation, if you like, which is pulling yourself out of it, really. So, that's quite interesting. So tell us how your business is set up. I mean, obviously now, did it change much during the pandemic, and what's happening post-pandemic, if it has or hasn't?
Yeah, so I would obviously prefer that the pandemic didn't happen, but it turned out that it was very supportive for our business, which was really nice. I think on one level, people really needed the support. There were many, many students that, maybe we worked with them years ago, and then they came back and were like, hey, we could use some coaching now that things have slowed down. And we also were in the process of moving most of our classes online, and this just gave us that extra push. So we're mostly doing in-person classes in San Francisco and also down in Mexico and in Hawaii doing retreats prior. We were doing some coaching on Zoom and a little bit of classes, but we just made the full transition to online. So now all of our classes, we have a weekly group coaching class called Mastery of Relationship. There's people from all over the world in it.
Oh, wow.
Private coaching on Zoom and weekend intensive courses and things like that. I mean, now we did one in-person course a couple months ago, which was great. I don't know when we're going to do another one, but we'll do those here and there. But it's really nice to be able to reach people from all over the place. I mean, in our weekly program, probably only maybe a quarter of them are from in town. Everybody else is, across the country, outside of the country. It's great.
Yeah, wow, that sounds great. So, did you find that there's more clients now because you are online, or
yes,
or would you do a hybrid of it? Because the world is now opening up their borders to fly around now. Obviously, you still got to be careful with the COVID, and we're both in the business of keeping people safe and healthy, not the other way around.
Yeah, there's a lot possible online. I mean, on one hand, you could say there's no substitute for being in person, especially with the work that we do and teaching certain practices. So we'll be incorporating some of that, over the next bunch of months. But especially now when things are just kind of delicate and we're heading into the winter and, that kind of thing, we'll be easing into that pretty slowly.
Yeah, you mean the winter because there's a lot more colds and stuff like that, or
yeah,
you have to be careful
there's
still with it.
Expectations for things to spike. Hopefully, it won't.
That's right.
But,
hopefully, yeah. Well, if they kind of like put the practice in place to still keep those measures like distancing and the kind of protocols where you won't have to go into a lockdown, then hopefully it'll be okay. But once there is a spike, then it really will probably throw a little bit. Because they won't want crowds of people everywhere. That's the issue, you see. So
yes.
But I don't think that's an issue with you in terms of the work you do. You don't really have big crowds, do you? It's kind of like either one-on-one or a group, small groups, isn't it?
Yeah, some events we've had, go up to 100 people, but usually our classes that were in person cap it at like 30. so it's not a huge group, but people are around each other, and sitting next to each other and talking and having deep conversations and these types of things. And in some of our courses, like clothed, practicing the touching practices, and so it's best if it's safe.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it's quite interesting and intrigued with the work you do. So it's really great. So how can people find out more about what you do now? And obviously, if it's online, I'm sure they can sign up now for it.
Totally. Yeah. Well, the best way, actually, I'll give you a couple ways. The best way to find out more for people that are listening and they're interested in working with Erwan and me or finding out more is I recommend setting up a Love Life consultation, which is a free conversation with me. It can be on Zoom, it can be over the phone, and we'll get personal. You can share anything with me about your romantic life, your sex life, your goals, your desires, your challenges, and I'll coach you a little bit. And then if it looks like Erwan and I can support you, I'll lay out the different options we have to work with people, and then you can decide if you want to jump into something. So the way to set that consultation up, it's free, is to text our school, which is 415-308-9580. That's 415-308-9580. It works on WhatsApp because you might have a lot of listeners over not in the United States. So
That's right. I was going to ask you that.
And then I also have a link I'll give you, that people can just click the link and fill out the form to set up the consultation. And then our website is pleasurecourse.com. So if somebody just wants to more look around first, you can just go to our website.
Excellent. Well, that's great. That's great. Well, I'm sure people will benefit from this work, which, people don't think sometimes about the relationship side of using, the tools that you can give. But it's people that already existed in relationships as well as the people that want to get into relationships. It's not, it's for everyone really, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, thanks for coming on the show and sharing all this. It's really, really intrigued about what you're doing there. Now I found out. It's quite good what you're doing. Well, as I say, thanks a lot for coming on the show and sharing that with my audience today.
Thanks, Dave. Great to be with you.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening. And remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. Or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.